Like I said yesterday, I'm not really into year in review summaries of what happened unless they help us next season. And I'm talking about next summer when many of you are going to be drafting, some of you in a couple leagues, some of you in 10 or more leagues. I just do the one these days. That's all I have time for. But by doing this kind of analysis of like what happened, then I can figure out, okay, what are the trends based on other things that have happened over the years? Yesterday I talked about quarterbacks, how few of the top 20 fantasy quarterbacks met or exceeded expectations. Many of them flopped. It was fascinating. Some of the flop it was due to injuries. Some of it was just poor play. So with that in mind, I want to focus on running backs. Yesterday's podcast was the longest yet. I think it was like 21 minutes. I'll try to keep this at about 12. How about that? Um, the top 30, I'm going to run through 5 at a time this time because I realize if you're listening to this, me rolling through 10 names at a time might be a lot. So the top 5 preseason, where I want to preface this by saying never before in the history, and I've gone back since 2012, tracking preseason average draft positions for every position, top 50, 54, or whatever, running backs, wide receivers, top 30 something quarterbacks. It's a lot. This is the first time that 9 of the top 10 running backs have played every single game through championship week, the second to last week of the season. Only Josh Jacobs has missed 1 game. That is insane. And if you're looking at my spreadsheet right now, you can see how odd it is because in general, 2 or 3 running backs fall well short of expectations or moderately short of expectations based on missing time. That's it. Not to mention other guys who just, regress. But generally, injuries are what hurts running backs, and that's why the RB strategy in the first and second rounds that might have worked 20 years ago doesn't work as well these days. Wide receivers are more common in the early rounds, and we've seen a shift in average draft position as a result in management and in manager behavior as a result. But this year, if you drafted a top 10 running back, even with Jacobs, you got someone who was playing basically every day. Every single week. Jacobs, again, is the only one to miss 1 game. So I want to preface what I'm about to say with that. Now, we've got the top 5. Saquon Barkley, Bijan Robinson, Jahmyr Gibbs, Derrick Henry, Christian McCaffrey. The one glaring, whatever rhyme you want to insert there for blaring and glaring, red flag that I issued this preseason. The biggest one, the one that I said, you have to trust me, in the same way that you had to trust me last year about Christian McCaffrey, was Saquon Barkley. He was either a high-end injury risk based on historical data or a high-end regression risk based on the same historical data. Saquon Barkley, number 1 overall. If you listen, I hate to say it like this because you don't have to listen to me, and a lot of times I'm wrong, but I think I'm right more often than wrong on the tough calls. And this was one that was backed by years and years and years and years of research. It is actionable. And I just told folks, look, Barkley, there's no way. He will be a serious regression candidate. And he was through week 17. He's averaged only 14.5 fantasy points per game. He has 232.3 fantasy points. If he had that through 10 games and he missed 6 with an injury, that would have been better for fantasy managers because at least then you would have gotten the better bang for the times he was on the field, like you did last year. And you can afford to miss some games with him and replace him with someone else. The problem with Barkley was that he was not reliable. Averaging 14.5 points per game essentially means you're rolling the dice that he's going to be near elite, because more often than not, he's not going to be near elite. And that's going to really stink in terms of messing up your lineup if you've taken him first, second, third overall. So the other guys all pretty much crushed it to some degree or another. Derrick Henry obviously had some lag, but championship, he came through. He doesn't catch a lot of passes. He is touchdown dependent. When it works, it works. When it doesn't, it doesn't. And there you go. Christian McCaffrey, incredible. And he will be next season's Saquon Barkley. That's my call. I'm telling you that now. I'll talk more about it next summer. The next five on the list. ADP 6 through 10. Ashton Gianti, Josh Jacobs, Bucky Irving, Jonathan Taylor, Devon Achane. The only one there with a questionable quarterback situation was Taylor. And it turned out that Daniel Jones did just fine. And as a result, Jonathan Taylor did just fine. I think he tailed off towards the end of the season when Jones got hurt. He did. I mean, he crushed it in week 10. He had almost 50 fantasy points. After that, he was Saquon Barkley-esque. He averaged about 13 or so fantasy points down the stretch. So he loses that luster because he didn't hit the big points when it counted because of the messed up quarterback situation. His average yards per carry after week 10 were something like 3.5 yards per carry or something like that. He entered that week averaging about 5.4. So you can see the drop off was just tremendous. Fewer scoring opportunities, all of it. But on the whole, he crushed it. It's just that if you stuck it out with him, as you probably should, because of how great he is, he lagged. So what do we learn? Jonathan Taylor next year, quarterback situation, really important. Who's going to be a quarterback? If they re-sign Daniel Jones and he's healthy, that is a good sign for Taylor's prospects. If they're going to roll with some combination of reincarnated Phillip Rivers at age 45, reanimated, I meant to say, and or Anthony Richardson or a rookie, you might be rolling the dice there because defenses can stack the box and put pressure on him. The other guys on there, Gianti had some big games, but generally struggled as a rookie. He had almost 400 touches his final year of college. That was a blaring red flag. I did not talk about that red flag because it was not on my radar this summer. It will be for other running backs in future summers. Jacobs, just, so-so. I think that's the best you can say about Jacobs. He did fine when he scored. That's pretty much what you can say. And he did fine overall. He just wasn't quite at that level. Bucky Irving got hurt. And as I talked about last summer, Rachaad White was a huge, huge red flag on my draft board. And Bucky Irving was a huge bargain. And it played out that way. This year, I insisted that Rachaad White was the bargain at his 45, whatever it was, ADP. And Bucky Irving in the top 10 was a huge, huge red flag. Maybe not as huge as some other red flags, but a huge red flag. Bucky Irving averaged 14.2 fantasy points per game. He was the RB 18 in points per game. Not nearly where he needed to be. He did great early on, then he got hurt. And what I talked about on the blog was when he returns, there is a huge risk that he will not be anywhere close to dominant the way he was before. If Tampa Bay is high in the postseason, they've got Rachaad White, they've got Sean Tucker, they can mix it up with this backfield. They want to keep Irving healthy for when the games matter most. And Irving, as it was, struggled regardless and didn't catch as many passes as one would have expected. He was, relatively speaking, a flop. Achane crushed it. There's no other way to say it. Terrible QB situation. He thrived in spite of it in part, and this is the key, 85 targets. If Jonathan Taylor were getting 85 targets, it wouldn't matter who's a quarterback as much. But with Achane, it really didn't matter. You could have a seventh-round rookie quarterback, and Achane would do just fine. 11 through 15, we've got Chase Brown, Kyron Williams, James Cook, Omarion Hampton, Alvin Kamara. What an odd combination in that 11 to 15. You've got guys who are early in their career, you've got guys in the middle of their career, and you've got someone who hopefully, and I say this lovingly, will retire soon because I want to remember Alvin Kamara for the greatness that he was. Like LaDainian Tomlinson going to the Jets at the end of his career, no thanks. Didn't want to see those 3.2 yards per carry. I wanted to remember him as the greatest running back of his mini generation. And Kamara has been so good for so long. This was the year that it all crashed. And ironically, they had the best quarterback situation in the second half of the season that they could have imagined going into this year. And Kamara wasn't there to enjoy most of it or capitalize on most of it. So if we look at those 11 through 15, Chase Brown, very slow start. Some of you sold low. Some of you bought low, and those who bought low might have won a title because of Chase Brown. Kyron Williams, we saw him. I warned about him this summer. I was wrong about him for almost the entire season. He dominated. I kept saying Blake Corum, Blake Corum, Blake Corum's going to go into a timeshare. It never happened. It never happened. And then suddenly it started to happen. It started to happen around week 10. And we saw Kyron Williams just slip a little bit when it mattered most. Not a lot, but just a little bit as Corum started to ease into it. Kyron Williams still got his touchdowns, but the writing's on the wall. This is a split backfield heading into next season. And Kyron Williams, if he is, let's say top 12 next season, you've been warned because he has to thread the needle to be that good again. James Cook was a league winner for many of you. I didn't see it coming. As I've talked about in previous podcasts, he had very few touches in college. His longevity in the NFL is capped, in my opinion. I said earlier this year that I don't expect him to be a starter for more than one more year. So next year, he will obviously be the starter. No one's taken that away. And I believe, based on his college stats and historical data going back to 1997 that I have in my spreadsheet, unless he's like Kenyon Drake, and even Kenyon Drake didn't do what Cook did, there is no conceivable way that he will be a starter in 2027. Or if he is, it won't be for very long. I'll put it that way. So if you're in Dynasty, man, what a great time to sell high unless you're looking to win it all next year and you need someone like Cook. But what can you say? I was completely wrong about how great he could be. Most of the market was wrong. And the writing is on the wall, in my opinion. Marion Hampton, that injury really crushed him. He averaged 15.1 fantasy points per game. He could have been easily top 8. But Kamani Vidal stepped up, and it was hard to bench Vidal until he got hurt, and then it was all Hampton again. But Hampton is the real deal, obviously. The big question going into next season is how much of a role Vidal's going to play. And then we've got Kamara, who the whole Saints backfield is now officially up in the air. 16 through 20, I was completely wrong about Breece Hall. Breece Hall's the preseason RB16. I thought he was going to be one of the biggest steals, running back steals of the draft. I thought he would return to greatness. Not that I thought Justin Fields would be any good, as I talked about yesterday. I thought Justin Fields was vastly overvalued, but I thought Hall would be leaned on. Now, how many catches does he have through 16 games? He has 36 catches on only 48 targets. That's not going to cut it. I think he had like 80 targets, 90 targets his first or second, his first full season. That's what I was thinking. I thought that with very few weapons on that team, Garrett Wilson being the most prominent and rookie tight end Mason Taylor maybe getting some love, that Breece Hall was going to be the clear-cut number 2 or number 1 offensive playmaker. And we've seen greatness from him, but he just hasn't gotten much through the passing game, and they haven't scored a lot. And there you go. 17 through 20, we've got Kenneth Walker, James Conner, Chuba Hubbard, Travion Henderson. Kenneth Walker really in a timeshare. Things worked out in his favor, but next year, warning signs. Obviously, Zach Charbonnet is here to stay. Terrible rhyme, wasn't intentional. There you go. James Conner was one of my biggest busts this season, and he got hurt. And there you go. And his career might be effectively over as a fantasy weekly starter. And who knows what his condition will be when he's back next year. Chuba Hubbard was a huge red flag. That everything went right for him last season, and he was good enough. But once he got hurt, Rico Dowdle showed that he was better, arguably. And between those two, Hubbard is now a 1B going into next season. If Dowdle, I don't know Dowdle's contract situation, but assuming he's back. Travion Henderson, I did several podcast episodes on this. Ramondre Stevenson got a lot of breaks for fumbling the ball. And Travion Henderson took a long time to get going. It took a Ramondre Stevenson injury for Henderson to finally break through. That's the value of being patient when you have a talented rookie running back that you don't want to sell too low. That goes for Gianti, that goes for Hampton, any number. If you've got a very talented rookie running back, it is better to hold on for the fantasy playoffs and see if they break out than just sell low for, a top 24 to 26 running back just to try to get some points. Wrapping things up, 21 through 25. RJ Harvey, DeAndre Swift, David Montgomery, Isaiah Pacheco, Tony Pollard. Also a fascinating group. I traded Woody Marks and somebody I can't remember who for RJ Harvey and somebody I can't remember who. I won that trade because of Harvey. He wasn't efficient for a while, and then he really got going, and I love his usage in the receiving game. J.K. Dobbins' situation will be one to monitor if R.J. Harvey's in a timeshare next year or if it's his backfield. If it's his backfield, then he's probably going to be undervalued because he's right now the RB22 in fantasy points per game. The market doesn't always factor in why someone was the RB22, that he was in a timeshare, and he was the 1B at that. I mean, J.K. Dobbins was the starter for much of the season. So if he's maybe next year the RB16 in terms of ADP, but it's his backfield, what a bargain at that point. Swift surprised me. He struggled. He struggled last year in terms of efficiency. He struggled early this season because of efficiency. I thought Kyle Monange would step up and possibly replace him. Monange did step up, but he did not replace Swift. Swift was far better than I gave him credit for. Dave Montgomery, the end of his career seems to be approaching. I talked about this during the season. His efficiency notwithstanding, there was a period where he had, I forgot what it was, like 0 broken tackles and 80 carries, or 2 broken tackles and 120 carries, whatever it was. It was an awful stat line. And it really showed that he is not the same dominant force or semi-dominant. I know you might laugh at that. He was great. He was one of the best broken tacklers in the backfield for years. It just happened to be that now at his advancing age and usage and everything else, it's possible that he's nearing the end of his fantasy relevance, and he certainly was not fantasy relevant. I had him on my team, and I started him a bunch early in the season before I finally didn't have to anymore. Pacheco, have talked about him in terms of being down on him the last couple seasons. It's going to be hard to see how the Chiefs don't bring in someone who can be a true workhorse in that backfield. It's not going to be Pacheco. And then Pollard, it took him a while, and he finally stepped up in tandem with Cam Ward stepping up. Who knows whether Pollard helped elevate Ward? Who knows if Ward helped elevate Pollard? But the point is that Tennessee offense kicked into another gear towards in December, and Pollard reaped the rewards of that. And next year, Tyjae Spears, I think, has one more year on his contract. Pollard is, going to be 29 years old. So there's going to be this big question mark of whether Pollard is overvalued next season, because despite the fact that he didn't do that great, he did well down the stretch, and it might be that the market says, well, we'll put him in the top 24, in which case, it's a little bit of rolling the dice on that Pollard's going to be the guy at 29 years old for the entire season. Finally, the last 5, 26 through 30. We have Aaron Jones, Tyrone Tracy, Caleb Johnson, Joe Mixon, Jaylen Warren. Yes, as I've said before, Caleb Johnson was ranked ahead of Jaylen Warren. Didn't work out. Joe Mixon was a great flyer for people in drafts. I recommended drafting him and putting him on IR and getting him for the fantasy playoffs. Didn't happen. So 2 of those guys, complete busts. Tyrone Tracy looked like a bust until he returned from his injury and Cam Scatterbo got hurt, and then Tracy did just fine. Aaron Jones, same situation. Looked like a bust, got hurt, comes back, and kind of takes ownership of that backfield more or less. Jaylen Warren, mixed bag. Kenneth Gainwell kind of capped Warren's ceiling, and that offense in general in Pittsburgh is tight end heavy, to say it kindly. And so it was hard for someone like Warren to be a weekly starter. The special kind of commendations given to guys outside of the top 30. These are guys that people missed. People as in the market overlooking some of these guys. Travis Etienne was ranked 32nd. Charbonnet was ranked 33rd. Quinshon Judkins, although he really struggled, was 35. Javonte Williams was 36. J.K. Dobbins, who was great when he was on the field, 37. Cam Scatterbo, 39. Ramondre Stevenson, 40. Are you hearing this? most of the guys, and then I didn't even mention Jordan Mason at 31, most of the guys in 31 through 40, with the exception of Tank Bigsby and Austin Eckler, were either streamable or entirely startable. That's incredible for that 31 to 40 group when you consider that the 21 to 30 group included Dave Montgomery, Isaiah Pacheco, a frequently struggling Tony Pollard, a questionably healthy Aaron Jones, a returning Tyrone Tracy from injury, a non-entity in Caleb Johnson, a non-entity in Joe Mixon, and a screamer maybe kind of in Jalen Warren. The 31 through 40 group was better easily than the 21 through 30 group. That is something that is not surprising. I have talked about this, I won't say many times, sometimes, both on the podcast and on the blog, going back to 2012. I've got all the data and all the averages. The dead spot for drafting running backs is in that 20s group, not the entire 20s, but some portion of the 20s. So that is why you generally want to avoid those guys because they tend to be back-end starters or perceived to be back-end starters. And those back-end starters don't often keep their jobs. So that's one of the big takeaways. Tomorrow I'm going to focus on wide receivers. Again, this is BJ Rudell, Fantasy Football for Winners. Follow me on the blog. Email me anytime. I'm enjoying speaking with you. I hope you're enjoying this podcast. If so, please leave a review. We'll see you tomorrow.